Okay, hi everyone. I'm recording this video to show you the answer key of the midterm 2, the written part. Okay, so let's start. Well, the first one, we have a list, and then for this budget, well, we have the Python is the item, and then the value or the price, another item, another price. Okay, so if I want to get the dryer, which is the third item, and then the index should be 2, so I'm going to do a budget 2. And how do you get the budget, the second last item with the negative index? So the second last should be TV, and then the index should be -2. Print the budget of the bookshelf with a proper index. So the bookshelf is here, and then the price should be 200. So if you want to count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Okay, so I guess my answer key is wrong. So, well, this one should be 8 instead of 7. Okay, glad I find this out. So, and then, well, if you want to do a negative index, then you can do the -1, -2, -3. So, well, -3 is also okay. If you want to use a slicing to create a living room, and for the living room, we have the items from the couch. So index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So every item after the index 4 should be in the living room. So if I want to create an index, it should be from 4 all the way to the end. And then for the laundry room, and we have the 0, 1, 2, 3. So we are keeping the items from index 0 to index 3. So we have the slicing stop at index 4. So that is for the laundry room. And if I want to change the budget from a couch to a love seat, and then if you want to see, the couch is here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the couch is 4, and then the price of the couch is 5. So for the index 4, I'm changing that to love seat, and for the index 5, I'm changing it to 650. Okay, and then if I want to delete the last two items from the budget list, and then you can do a del, which is for delete, and then I specify a slicing that is starting from the -2, index -2 to the very end. So I'm deleting the index -2 and the index -1. And if you want to do with 2 deletes, that's also okay. And then I want to add the dresser and then 700. Well, what I did was I used the budget and then plus the dresser and 700 as a list. So I'm doing a list concatenation. So the budget is the existing list, and then I'm adding another list to the end. Well, if you want to do 2 append costs, that's also fine. Okay, and multiple choice questions. For the first one, what does the open do? And then the answer is the open will return a file object or a file reference that you can read, write, or append. Well, the next one, if you run this code and input, enter a number, and then repeat it twice, so multiply by 2. But remember, when we are taking a input, we are taking that as a string. So this n will be a string, right? And then string multiplied by 2, that is string repetition. And then if we are putting the 5, and then we have the n as 5, but string 5, not integer 5. And then if we are doing a string repetition, and we are going to have 5 as a string. Okay, and which operation does not require a index value, and it should be append, because for append we don't have to specify where we want to append. We always put it at the end. And the next one, if we are doing a slice with starting from the index 1, so we are getting rid of the index 0, so D is correct. And the next one, if you want to get the 40, and then, how do we do that? And 40 is here. So from the top level, we only see 2 sublists. So we have to do the index 1 so that we got this sublist. And then using that sublist, and the 40 is index 0, so C is the right answer. So the next one, we are doing the range from 0 to 10, and then if this value divide 2, most 2 is a 0, that means that value should be an even value. So if we have an even value, we want to print that even value, and then after printing, we want to do a space instead of a line break. So we are going to have 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And remember, we don't have 10. For the next one, we have the list 1, and then list 2. List 2 is the same to the list 1, and then we want to do a list 2 index 0 as 10. And eventually we want to evaluate list 1 list 2. Are they the same? The answer is yes, they are. And how do I know that? Say we have the list 1, and we also have a list 2. And then for the list 1 and list 2, they refer to the same list, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so list 1 and list 2, they refer to the same list. And after we want to change the list 2, and can we do that in place? The answer is yes, we can, because list is a mutable data type. So we do that in place. So now when we do the third line, the list 2 index 0 equals 10, and list 1 and list 2 will be changed at the same time. But when you are checking the values of the list 1 and list 2, remember they still refer to the same list. So they still equal to each other, so we are going to get a true. Okay, and the next one, if we want to do a s equals hello, and then we create a list to be empty, and for I in the range of the length of s, so the I in the range of the length of the s, and the length of the s is 5 because hello has 5 characters, and then for the range of the 5, and then I will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And then for the list, we are appending the I, so we are appending 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so B is correct. Okay, the next one. Well, we have a function. We are taking a letter and then a sequence, and we are doing a count equals 0. And then for item in the sequence, if the item, which is the current item we are visiting, equals the letter, and then we are increasing the count by 1, eventually we are returning the count. Well, what this function does is we are going to take a letter and then a sequence, and this sequence, if you are doing this case, if you are seeing this case, it is really a string. So we are checking how many occurrence of this letter in this string, and then we are doing a count. Eventually we are going to return that. So well, if we want to do this function count, we are counting how many a's are there in this string. So I count 1 and 2, so there are 2 a's, so E is correct. And the next one, s is the empty string, and then n equals 0. As long as n is smaller than 5, and I want to do a s plus equals the strn. So I'm taking the n as a number, and then I'm casting that into a string, and then n plus 1. So eventually we are going to start from the n as 0. So n0 will be added to s. So this string s should start from 0. That's guaranteed. So A and B are the candidates of the correct answer. And then I'm adding the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So on the run when n is 4, so n smaller than 5, that is still true. And then s plus equals string 4. So I'm casting 4 into the string 4, and then I'm adding that to s. So it's guaranteed that I'm going to have the 4 here. But do we have 5? So for the current round, n plus equals 1, and then n will be 5. And we start over the next round. We start from here, and then 5, which is n, smaller than 5 will be a false. This means after the round, when n increases from 4 to 5, we are going to stop. So there's no way that we have the 5 also added to the string s. So A is the correct answer. Okay, and then for this program, for x in the range from 5 to 0 with the step size as 1. So is that kind of weird? Well, we start from the 5, and then we end at 0, and then the step size is 1. How can we do that? We start from 5, we increase by 1, that's 6. We increase by 1, that's 7. Okay, so we ain't gonna get to 0. So this range is invalid. Okay, and the next question is, if that is an invalid range, how many values are there? And the answer is no, 0. We don't have any values in this range. So this iteration will be iterated for 0 times. And then I'm going to print out done. So the only thing you're going to see will be out done. Okay, and the next question. Well, for my max A and B, and if A is greater than B, M equals A, and else M equals B. So everything is good. And then if I want to get the my max 5 and 8, what are you going to get? The answer should be none. Why? Because there is no return value. Okay? Okay, and the next question, true and false. ZZ not in embezzlement. Well, if we want to skip the not, ZZ is in is a substring of the embezzlement, and that's true because ZZ is one of the substring. Well, but if we add the not, and then we are going to flip that to false. So false is the right answer. And then true or false, the list in Python must contain at least a single element, and that's false because we can create a empty list like this. Oops, like this, right? And then the strings are immutable in Python and therefore cannot be altered in place. That's true. We cannot change a string in place. Well, functions cannot be called or invoked more than once in a program. That's definitely not true. Well, one of the reasons we want to create function is that we want to use that function or that piece of the code again and again by using a big number of the function calls. And whether an argument is immutable or immutable in Python is determined by its type, and that is correct. Well, say if you have an integer, that's definitely immutable because that is an integer in Python. And similarly, if you have a list, and that list has to be mutable because again that is a list in Python. Well, when you read a line from a file and then the line break at the end of this line will be read as a \t. That's wrong because \t is for a horizontal tab, and for a line break we are going to read in as a \n, right? Okay, and using the indexes in the square brackets, you can get the characters in a string or items in a list, or but you cannot use the same syntax in ranges. That's not true. Say if we have a range, and then you can also use the square bracket to get an item in the range. So this syntax is also supported in range. Well, the continue keyword in Python will stop the current round of the iteration, but the iteration resumes in the next round, and that is correct. So for the continue, we stop the current round of iteration immediately, but if there is still the next round, we are going to go into the next round. Okay, and then I'm creating this I'm creating such a nested list, and then I want to output the information like this. And remember, for the last line, that is the total budget. Okay, so well, my observation is for this budget, it is a nested list, and then for each of the member in the nested list, or for each of the sublists, it contains two pieces of the information. That is the first one, the item, and the second one, the budget. Okay, and then if I want to do an iteration from the top level, and then I can do 4 sublists in budget. So well, I'm visiting the sublist one by one from the top level. So the first sublist I'm visiting should be the washer and 500. So that is the first sublist I'm visiting. And then I want to grab the washer, which is the sublist with the index 0, and then I want to grab the 500 with the sublist with the index 1. And then I'm formatting a string like this. The budget of the placeholder, the first placeholder is the second placeholder, right? And then I want to plug in the first item in the sublist, which is the washer, and then the second item in the sublist, which is the budget of the washer, that is 500. And remember, I'm also keeping a track of the total, so I created a a variable total equals 0 at the very beginning of the iteration, and when I'm visiting each of the sublists, I'm adding the budget of the current item to the total. So the total after the iteration will be the total of my entire purchase list. So I'm gonna eventually, after the for loop, I want to do the total. I want to do a print. The total of the budget is the placeholder, and then I want to plug in the total here. Okay, and the next one, we have a list of the states, we have another list of the capitals, and we want to zip them together one by one. Say, well, for the Alabama, well, that is index 0 in the states, and then it's the corresponding capital is the capital list with the index 0 on the list with the index 0, so that is Montgomery. Okay, so I want to grab the index 0 here, and then put them together. And how do I do? How do I write? How do I output? I want to write that to a file called output.txt. Okay, so I want to do a file out, and then I want to open this file with the keyword W, which is for writing, and then for I in the range of the length of the states. Well, why I'm using the length of the states? Because the length of the states and the length of the capitals are guaranteed to be the same, so it doesn't matter as long as, well, as long as I'm picking one of them. And then I want to do a file out dot write, and then placeholder of the first placeholder, and then greater than the second placeholder. And remember here, I want to do a line break. Okay, well, otherwise, well, for the write, it won't do the line break for you. You have to specify explicitly where do you want to do the line break. And I guess I find that I missed one more thing. It should be the file out.close. Okay, I'm adding that. Well, the next question, I'm creating, well, I'm using exactly the same thing here, and then now I'm trying to create a nested list. So for the nested list, we want to put the capital first, followed by the name of the state, and then those two items put together into a sublist. Okay, well, this is going to be a little bit hard because we are building a nested list on the fly. Let's see how I did that. Well, I created a state capital to be a empty list. Okay, this will be the final nested list I'm building. And then again, I'm doing the for I in the range of the length of the states. And okay, here I'm grabbing the capitals with the index I. I'm also grabbing the states with the index I. So for each index, I'm grabbing one capital and one state, and then I'm putting them together as what? As a sublist. So this is what I did. Okay, and you see the square bracket here. I want to do a square bracket and then capitals with the index I and the states with the index I. So I'm building a sublist, and after that I'm going to do a state capitals dot append sublist. So I'm appending the sublist as one member to the state capitals. So I'm appending a list to another list as one member of that, and this is how we can build a nested list. Okay, the next question, debugging. Well, we want to create a function that doubles all the values of a list. Well, for this one, if we do the for I in the list param, and then I equals I multiplied by 2, well, I grab the value, I got the values doubled. However, the problem is I don't really have a way to write the doubled value back. Okay, so well, I have to change the iteration to be like this. I have to do for I in the range of the length of the list param. So I'm still using the I, but this I, in this case, that is the index, right? So using the index, I should be able to grab the value on the index I want to double that, and then I want to write it back to the same place. So I grab the value, I double that, and then I want to write it back. So the next one, this question is interesting. Well, we want to print all the values from the back, from the right side to the left side, from the right side to the left side, and then well, the easiest way is we want to do the negative indexes. Say we want to start from the -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, right? And then, well, if we are doing a range of the length of the list param, and remember there are a total of 6 values, so we are doing the I in the range of the length of 6. What are the values? They are from 0 to 5. Okay, and then we want to do the negative I, that is -0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Wait, we started from -0, right? And what is -0? -0 is also a 0, and that's the reason that we print 10 first, and then followed by we print 10 first, followed by 69, 55, 64, 33, and 20. Well, that's a problem. We want to start from the -1 instead of -0. So what I have to do is, instead of putting the -1 here, a negative I here, I want to do the -1 minus I, so that for this index, I'm starting from the -1, not -0. Okay, and for this question, and there are multiple ways to get it fixed, and if you want to do a reverse of the string, or you want to do something else, which is, well, this means you are doing more changes than my solution. In this case, you will still receive some of the points, but probably not all the points in this question. Okay, and the next question, we want to do a sum, and for this sum, well, check the colors. So for this color, well, here that's the problem. Well, if you want to sum 1, 3, and 5 and then divide it by 3, that is the average of the list. Everything good. Well, but if you want to sum the string hello and then 1, 3, and 5, you can't do that, right? So, well, summing and then divided by the length and then get the average, this can be a risky operation considering we don't know what are the items inside the list. So that is a risky code. And then how do you protect the risky code? And that is, I create a sum at 0 and then I want to try this part. For the try part, I want to add all the values together and then return the sum divided by the length. That's the average. However, in this try block, if you got any issue, you are going to trigger the except, and for the except, I'm returning arrow check the input parameter. So that's my solution for this part. Okay, the next question. We are trying to grab the first letter of each line. For one line, that's the members of one team. And what we want to do is we want to grab the first letter of each of the team member. We put them together. Say for the Peter, Paul, and Mary, we got the P, and M. Okay, so PPM. And then we want to get the total length of those three names. So Peter is 5, Paul is 4, Mary is 4. So add them together, we got a 13. So PPM 13 should be the name of the first line representing the first team of the Peter, Paul, and Mary. Okay, so how do we do this part? We want to first open the file, of course, and then we want to read this file line by line. Well, for this part, well, this is the one I believe most people will miss. Remember, when we are reading a file, at the very end, what do we have? We have a line break, right? So that is a \n, and that \n will be read, and then it will be part of the Mary. So even you don't see that for this Mary, that is really Mary \n. So you have one extra character to get rid of at the end of the line before you do the further operations. So what I did was I do a slicing. So line equals the line, and then I'm getting rid of the last character, which is the \n. And after that, I do the split. So splitting all the names by comma. And after that, well, I'm creating an empty list, and that is the initial lattice, starting as an empty list. And then for the total length, I'm adding all the lengths of all the names together, and then it started from 0. So for each of the name in the values, I want to grab the initial letter of the current name, and then I'm adding that I'm adding that to the initial lattice. And in addition, I'm also getting the length of the name, and then I'm adding the length of the name to the total length. So I'm building a string of the initial lattice, and I'm also getting the sum of the length of all the names at the same time. I did that using one iteration. And after that, I have the ppm in the initial lattice, and then for the total, it will be 13. However, this 13 will be an integer, so I have to cast it into a string and then and concatenate the ppm and then a string 13. So I eventually will have the ppm 13, and then I'm printing the team name, which is the ppm 13, and then I'm gonna move on to the next line. So eventually, I think I missed this again, so it should be a file lin dot close parentheses. Okay, so that's the end of this video, and I hope this video will help you to prepare the further exams. Okay, good luck. Bye.